The college season is in full swing, so let's take a look at some of my favorite sleeper returners in the 2025 NBA Draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break them down. Adou Thiero is my favorite returner overall so far, and I think that he's still a sleeper considering that he wasn't on many boards to start this very season. The Arkansas junior, plain and simply, is having his breakout year. I've always loved Thiero's tools, and now he's putting them together on a consistent basis. This season, Thiero is averaging about 19 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block per game. The Razorbacks prospect grew up playing as a guard, but after a huge growth spurt and plenty of development as well, I see him as a 3 and a 4 now. Thiero plays with grown man strength and size all the time. He dislodges defenders on his drives. He disrupts attackers constantly on defense, and he is one of those two-way prospects who leaves a stamp on both ends. So far this year, the former Kentucky prospect is shooting about 73% at the basket. So his biggest improvement point right now is the three-pointer. Thiero is only shooting 21% from deep, and even though he does shoot a lot of free throws, he's converting under 70% of those foul shots. As a result, it's the shot, especially from downtown, that's Thiero's swing skill. I'm confident that he's going to be pretty good in transition, cutting, and potentially screening, but he needs to space the floor. There are times when I look at Thiero and I'm reminded of a wing/forward like OG Anunoby, but if he's unable to flesh out that shot, even in stationary situations, then his NBA role is probably more similar to another Knicks wing in Josh Hart. St. Joseph's Jr. Rasheer Fleming should be one of the biggest risers in this draft cycle, but I think we're early on enough still for Fleming, who I'm confident is an NBA prospect, to be a sleeper. The Hawks prospect comes in at 6'9", 240 pounds, with a wingspan around 7'4" or 7'5". Those dimensions are already incredibly appealing, and they're a big part of why I believe that Fleming is still moldable enough to play the 3, the 4, and the 5 in the long run. On that note, it's also crucial to touch on his youth and his rate of improvement. Fleming is a young junior who'll only be 21 come draft time. Before committing to St. Joe's, he was a 0-star recruit in high school who was teammates for a bit with DJ Wagner or Aaron Bradshaw. And finally, linking all of these things together this season, there's the production. Fleming is averaging about 14 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, and more than 3 stocks per game. He's making 41% of his catch and shoots and 67% of his shots at the basket. I've watched Fleming play live and rip down rebounds on both ends, make shots at the rim, use his length to come up with big-time plays, and then I also look at his numbers, I see how far he's come, and I'm sure that at the very least, he will be a surefire second rounder next summer. Ryan Kalkbrenner is not a sleeper in the sense of not being well known. After all, he's in his 5th season of college basketball and he's been pretty dominant for the past few years. Even right now, he's having his best season to date as a scorer, passer, and probably defender as well. But the Creighton big man is a 7-footer worth paying attention to for what he does at the rim, and then he's really not a stiff. Ryan runs the floor, he plays hard, and he makes multiple efforts. In college, he's been pretty effective patrolling the rim. But going forward, I do think that Kalkbrenner is much more limited on both sides of the ball and will probably have to live in a reserve role. I'm pretty unsure about how his athleticism holds up against more skill, speed, and length, as well as whenever he's pulled away from the paint. On offense, I think that Kalkbrenner can give a team a solid 15 minutes or so, but I also believe that his physical dominance just won't exist in the same way, and he won't create as many advantages with his back to the basket. All that said, the reason why I call Kalkbrenner a sleeper is because I trust that he can come in and play a role for an NBA team almost straight away. Sure, he's older and he has less upside, but Kalkbrenner is very productive, and all we have to do is look at his 49-point season opener. As of now, I choose to view him in the Trayce Jackson-Davis mold of how a seasoned college center can come in and contribute early on with feel and production, but in a less vocal capacity. Stanford's Maxime Raynaud is a very atypical big man. The 7'1" Frenchman is in his 4th season of college basketball, and right now he's dominating his competition. Raynaud is averaging a 22 and 11 double-double to go along with 1 block and 2 assists. Clearly, that's impressive, so what is it that sets him apart? Well, Raynaud is uniquely skilled and fluid at that size, but I feel that what he leverages is how well he moves rather than how big he is. Raynaud loves to share the ball, posting up and spraying out passes and acting as a hub. He can also put it on the floor or face up. And then, something that has been new this season is that the French big is shooting a lot of threes and making 40% of them. In turn, this is allowing him to use his ball handling and feel to attack closeouts and create further advantages. Raynaud is very fun to watch, however, I'm unconvinced by his physicality, and I almost feel that he's better suited to being a 4 on offense rather than a 5. I see him and I get Kelly Olynyk vibes. Now, that isn't that concerning to me, but it's on defense where I have a lot more questions. It's true that Raynaud averages over 1 block a game, but that figure is misleading. He's had no rejections in 5 of his 10 games this season, and then he had 1 5-block night against California that inflated his average. The Stanford senior also lacks physicality, at least the type that I want from 7-footers, and I don't think that he has very good defensive instincts overall. I know for sure that Raynaud would thrive in Europe as a pro, but he's skilled, unique, and now productive enough to give the NBA a real go. I've tracked Baba Miller for years, and it looks like the Spanish junior is really starting to once again turn a corner after transferring to FAU. Miller is an incredibly unique prospect within the context of Spanish basketball, as there is no one else in his generation with a 7-foot frame, long arms, tangible athleticism, and legitimate upside. Baba had stagnated at Florida State, which is never good after a few years of college hoops, but I do think he's putting himself back on NBA radars with how this season has gone, and I see him in the late 2nd round right now. Miller has refined his decision-making, but he still flashes offensive versatility on both sides of the pick and roll. He can put the ball on the floor off the catch. He can play in transition, and then he can also fill in the gaps rebounding, moving the ball, or cutting. Baba might not do any one thing exceptionally well, but I think he's now shown enough progress in all of those areas to be genuinely encouraged. My biggest thing with Miller now is him continuing to rev up his physicality. Baba moves around better and he's using his body wiser than he was a few seasons ago, but he can still get pushed around by heavier wings who truly embrace contact. This happens on either end, be it an attacker putting a shoulder into Miller's chest, him losing position while rebounding, or maybe just being unable to get past a defender off the bounce. If I were an NBA organization, I'd really want Baba in my system. He dunks, he shoots threes, he's long, he's athletic, and he's shown that he eventually gets better. However, there's one thing that I want to be very clear about right now. Even though he's 6'11" or 7 feet, Baba is a wing right now. He's not a 5, so the development and the expectations have to be realistic if a team sees him as a big in the long term, because believing him to be that in the near future would be very unfair.